Wait, so how are we doing it? We're doing...
I thought you were...
Sorry.
I thought you were opening on your joke.
Sorry, I thought we were opening on your thing. I was like, I didn't know if I was saying unless I open on that.
Okay, let's open on... We can open on my thing.
Okay, I can open on it if you wanted. I was saying that I didn't think it was strong enough, but I can do it.
We'll do the 3, 2, 1 thing, and then
okay.
And then you can go into your joke, maybe.
Right.
Okay. I'm just letting it record.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't think either of us have anything clever to start this, so how about I just count down to 3, and then
all right.
We both say our one-word synopsis at the same time. So like 1, 2, 3, word.
All right.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, terrible.
Mediocre.
Oh, okay.
To be fair, I was going to add the word aggressively mediocre, which would have been better, but you said one word, so I was just like, I've got to cut the other word.
You could have said it really fast. Aggressively mediocre.
Yeah. I don't cheat. Like it's you said one word, I gave you one word.
I guess aggressive would be too much of an active word for this.
Yeah, it's basically my thing is that there's nothing. It's like it's not that there's anything where I look at it and I go, that's objectively awful, so much as it is that it takes every opportunity for drama it has, it just misses. It's like Chibnall is an archer, except instead of hitting the bullseye dead on every single time he dead on hits in the outer ring, and it's uncanny because you'd think by accident he'd at least hit one of the inner rings once.
Well, I'm actually I'm gonna have you try and talk me out of giving a 1, to be honest.
I don't know if I'm motivated enough to talk you out of giving a 1. It's like, you remember earlier, I believe it was on the podcast where I complained about comic book morality? Yeah. And how I really hated it. And then the entire finale literally revolves around the Doctor literally says that if Graham kills Tim Shaw, he'll be just as bad as he is. And I'm just like, no, because Tim Shaw destroyed 5 entire planets, and Graham is killing one evil dude. Like, well,
also Tim Shaw he puts the people into stasis chambers for
exactly. Yes, which is what they end up doing, because putting someone for life in a stasis chamber, and where they will be unable to move, think, or escape, or anything, and possibly he's able to think, which would make it worse than killing him. Yeah. Like, I don't understand the morality where that's better. Because it's not like life imprisonment, where the person actually has an opportunity to live in some way. They're literally just freezing him. So the only thing that makes it morally better than killing him is that they feel better about it.
This is probably too political and we'll get cut, but, like, one of our few political disagreements beyond, like, economics and Keynesianism and whatnot from Kerblam is I'm pro, you're anti-death penalty, and I don't like that. Yes. I'm pro-death penalty, and I keep kind of waiting for to be convinced otherwise, and in the effort of trying to make a statement against killing people, this episode kind of made my arguments for the death penalty, which is a terrible, terrible sign. The thing for me is that
the reason that in real life I'm anti-death penalty is that I don't think it's necessary to kill people. Like, I don't think it helps in any way, and I don't think it's necessary, because the prisons work fine at keeping people incarcerated. But I've said before that if I lived in a Batman universe where the Joker busts out of Arkham Asylum once a week and kills 1,000 people, I'd say we should put the Joker on the electric chair just on a simple utilitarianism, like, if you don't, he's going to kill 1,000 people next week. And that's kind of a similar case. Well, the thing for me is that it doesn't even hang together as an ethical argument.
No, it does.
Because there's no real discussion about it except that Graham wants to kill a guy and the Doctor thinks that killing a guy is really bad. There's no actual thought put into it other than that Chibnall saw The Dark Knight once, or any one of a number of movies where characters are just like, no, you can't kill the bad guy, because that would be bad. And he just doesn't understand the underlying issues about it. He's just doing it because he thinks this is what Doctor Who is supposed to do. Well, that's really what I've learned about the whole 13th Doctor ethics throughout the season. Feel like they were written by someone who has no strong positions about ethics at all, but was told that the Doctor is a pacifist and is trying to write a pacifist without understanding pacifism.
I think even if you discount the moral aspect of it, it makes no sense plot-wise. So,
yes.
Tim Shaw didn't kill Grace. Grace fell. She was trying to get to the thing that was controlling Tim Shaw, or he was controlling. And did she just slip? I don't remember.
Yeah, I thought of that as well. She had nothing to do with Grace dying apart from being there.
Right. He didn't stab her. It
no.
wasn't
It's like Chibnall can't even remember what he wrote.
Right. So I could be like, I would not blame him for blaming Tim Shaw, because he was kind of indirectly responsible, but I cannot see, because of the way it unfolded, him being like, I need to kill this guy because he killed Grace, like, because it wasn't really him directly. He wasn't even trying to. He was trying to kill the random dude from the train.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember these episodes better than Chibnall, apparently. And then B, did I say A or 1? I think I said A.
I think you said A.
B, the Doctor's like, oh, you can't kill him, and then she makes a suicide vest, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, here's a grenade, Ryan, and
she's just like, the second episode, she's just like, nobody can use a gun for any reason whatsoever. This episode, she's just like, hey, here's a grenade, you have a grenade, you have a grenade. Everybody's running around with guns. That's what I'm saying about, I think that Chibnall doesn't, like, when Chibnall puts these things in, it's not because he cares about it in any way, it's just that someone told him that the Doctor doesn't like guns or killing. And so he's like, oh, I guess I have to write the Doctor not killing people and telling people off whenever they use a gun. But he hasn't put any logical thought into how this impacts the story or where this is coming from a character perspective. Yeah, it's just a mess.
What's kind of funny is he remembered the line in Ghost Monument where the Doctor chastised Ryan for using a gun.
Yeah.
And tries to retcon it, and his explanation isn't that, guns are always wrong. It's not that Ryan was being stupid, which is, truth.
Mm-hmm.
It was, oh, you were new, that's why I told you not to do that. Like,
yeah, there's an extent to which, like, the you were new when I was laying down the ground rules could work, but I don't think it works in those circumstances. It felt like Chibnall was just trying to justify why he now, for plot reasons, needs the Doctor to be able to hand out grenades.
Did he even need the Doctor to hand out grenades?
No, but he thought he did.
He thought he did.
For some reason, he was just like, this won't work unless there are grenades.
And I was getting interrupted a bit through the first half of the episode. I had 2 people come up to me and say, is this Doctor Who? Yes. Oh, is it good? I don't know. I'm watching it. But anyway, I got interrupted in the first half, so I might have missed something. Was there a battle?
No.
Okay. Because Chibnall, the episode's called The Battle of... And
there's no battle.
There's no battle. Okay. I thought I might have missed something in, like, the jump between the 3,000 years, which was cool. I was like, ooh, 3,000 years later, that's cool. But it didn't actually feel like it was 3,000 years.
But the thing is that the 3,000 years later thing is Moffat did stuff like that several times, But when Moffat did it, it was like sort of fun and irreverent, and it sort of works with the plot of the episode. Here, there's no logical reason for it to jump forward 3,000 years. Except that Tim Shaw is apparently really bad at his plan.
He is really bad at his plan. I mean, I read a book once that halfway through just had a page that said 10,000 years later. And I was like, "Ooh, that's cool." And the second half of the book was way different, and it made sense that there's a 10,000 year jump.
Yeah.
This one, not really. I mean, the what were they? The Ooks, the Ucks, the Ox.
The Ucks, I think.
The Ucks. The Ucks were cool, and I guess, they live a long time or forever or whatever, but they didn't really... Yeah, as you said, it's more like Tim Shaw's plan was really bad and really slow than anything cool.
The Ucks are such a, weird idea, because it's like... Because, first of all, they're introduced with talking about how their religion is all about doubt. And then proceed to believe that the first guy with a bunch of teeth in his face who shows up is God. Until someone, 3,000 years later says, "But what if he wasn't, though?" And then they're just like, "Oh, I guess he's not God, then."
It was so unformed, all these ideas.
Chibnall needs to first of all present a good reason why they believe he's God in the first place, which was not there.
Yeah.
And second of all, needs to present a good reason why they stop believing that he's God. And he doesn't do that either. They just decide that he's God because plot, and then they decide he's not God anymore because plot.
It's funny, I was, this morning I was talking about this episode with my friend Kate. Hi, if you're watching this, Kate. And she was pretty positive about the episode overall, and saying, there's lots of cool ideas. And with each idea she brought up, I kept saying, well, yeah, it was a cool idea, but it didn't work because of this. And by the end of our talk, she was like, the more we talk, the less I like this episode. Because it's one of those episodes where you think about it a little bit and just
yeah, that's my thing for this episode, that it's that's what I'm saying about that I was saying aggressively mediocre rather than this is terrible, was that as I was watching it, there was nothing that stood out to me as being bad. Except possibly the whole sort of should he kill Tim Shaw or not plotline that just felt bland even as I was watching it. It's just as I was thinking about it after, my first thought as it was done was I was just that was really meh for a Doctor Who finale, but nothing terrible. And it's the more I think about it, the more I'm just nothing in that makes sense. Starting from things the original premise of the episode is she's just there are 9 separate distress calls coming from this planet, and there's something in the atmosphere of the planet that drives people, that messes with your mind and drives you crazy. First of all, we only see one person whose distress call they're answering. So the 9 separate distress calls is thrown out right away. There's no purpose for it being there. And then the messing with the minds thing also has no purpose to be there. Because at no point in this episode does the planet mess with any of the characters' minds, which is surely the only purpose of introducing a planet that messes with people's minds.
Oh god. Well, I thought that with the 9 different planets, that they were saying that some of the planets that we visited in previous episodes were stolen. So the Vajarian homeland, which they said was destroyed, was actually stolen. Plot twist. The Desolation, I think, was moved or something like that. And I kept saying throughout the season, I think they're hinting at some super cool Stenza technology that can move or steal planets. And I was super excited, oh, the Vajarian homeworld, it's still around, it still exists, and she can save it. And now this presents this whole other conundrum of, do they go back to being assassins now that their planet is back, or have they learned and are gonna keep doing their thing, their cool thing now? And no, none of that happened. It was just 9 random planets.
It was 5 random planets.
It was 5 random planets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now so there's 3 distress calls unaccounted for.
So, and complaining about the planets lets me segue into the fact that the plot of this episode was directly, let's say, borrowed from The Pirate Planet, a 1970s Doctor Who story of Tom Baker, which was written by Douglas Adams. And it's not even like this is a particularly obscure story, because it just received a novelization, like, last year. That was a pretty well-publicized book. So, it's like the plot of that episode featured a character in a giant sort of machine, machine transport thing that was part of a planet, so a little bit different, but capturing the condensed, super dense bits of super dense planets, and having them in a display case. And then the interaction of the planet's masses sort of threatening to tear everything apart was a major plot point in that episode as well.
It was like that, plus the Stolen Earth, but worse.
Yeah. And the Pirate Planet. Also, the climax of the story involves the Pirate Planet is about to turn the Earth into the final planet that's going to be destroyed and put in this display case, exactly the same as the end here, and features the Doctor using the TARDIS to fight it, I believe. But that bit might be in the novelization. No, I think it's in the actual episode as well. But the whole using the TARDIS to sort of combat the thing is also from that. Going for Earth is from that. It's just...
It was a little bit like parting of the ways in that, the TARDIS has to resist the thing.
Yeah, but for me, it's the fact that all the stuff that you could say is stolen from other episodes is all the stuff that's present in the Pirate Planet, really?
Yeah.
So it's not even like we can accuse him of having a diverse sort of number of things that he's ripping off.
Yeah,
but the big thing for me is that Tom Baker's reaction in The Pirate Planet to finding out that the planets have been super condensed down and shrunken into this display case is like just complete outrage and moral shock, where he's like, you show me this atrocity and you expect me to admire it, which is one of the best Tom Baker scenes, I think. And Jodie Whittaker's just like, oh, there are planets, I guess that's bad. You broke some laws doing that. Like, the scale of her reaction doesn't seem to warrant the level of evil that goes into destroying 5 entire worlds, 5 genocides.
None of the emotions in this episode, and in many episodes, but we're not doing our postmortem today, just didn't seem to match the level of intensity that the words of the script seem to be suggesting, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
as you said, 5 planets just got plucked out of the sky and condensed into super dense forms. Everyone is dead on all those planets.
So I think it's sort of a 50. I'd say it's a 25-75 mix of Chibnall's not giving Jodie Whittaker any sort of chance to react to it is the 75, and then the 25 is that I don't think that Jodie Whittaker's very good. I think she's a great casting choice for the Doctor, but I think because she hasn't been given much to work with, she doesn't necessarily know exactly how to add that into the scripts. That I've noticed that her sense of wonder, it's always the same sense of wonder no matter what she's wondering at, if that makes sense. And the same thing with her anger. That the level of anger she shows towards Graham feels like the same level of anger she shows towards Tim Shaw. And really, you need an actor... the actor needs to be able to play them as 2 different levels. The Doctor's reaction to their friend saying that they're going to kill the person responsible for the death of their wife should be different from her reaction to discovering that someone has committed 5 genocides.
Yeah, I don't remember a moment other than, I guess, the Witchfinders, where the Doctor actually got angry, which is weird because this season is trying to make a point of being a little bit darker and more I don't know, human in its emotions. I'm trying really hard to resist bringing up demons. But it doesn't. I don't want to criticize Jodie, but I do think there's a little bit of her to blame here. It doesn't feel like she's reacting in a normal manner to the news of 5 planets just got completely wiped out by this dude who, by the way, you sent here. Like, you couldn't wrap your head around killing him, so you tried to be clever, and now 5 planets have been wiped out.
Yeah, and that's, I think, another weird part of the episode, is that it sort of brings that up and then doesn't really do anything with it, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like,
it was another opportunity for drama of like, oh, I sort of caused this, and maybe to reconsider her like absolutist stance. Nope, not brought up.
That's what I meant with my allegory about he's like someone shooting arrows and consistently hits the outer ring every time, even when you'd think statistically he'd hit one of the inner ones at least once. It's just like he has perfect opportunities for drama and then immediately sort of steers away from them. Like, he's got a planet that warps people's minds, and she's talking about like how it makes people act more aggressively, and I was just like, okay, he's found a clever way to have the characters sort of like screaming at the Doctor and everyone acting sort of a bit furious and heightened without it feeling like the characters are actually without necessarily having to carry that baggage forward all the time, if that makes sense. Like, Graham can actually scream at the Doctor about being responsible for Grace's death without us feeling like Graham is being unfair because the planet's messing with his mind and making things come out. And yet, he never uses that. He never uses the planet warping people's minds. Apart from one scene where the Doctor and Yaz get a slight headache.
Right, headache.
And
it's the water in the Ghost Monument all over again.
It's the same thing with the water in the Ghost Monument, where it's just like, oh, that's cool, and then he doesn't do anything with it. And it's
Can we talk about like the weird references to the Ghost Monument throughout this episode? I think there were a couple.
There were sniper bots, which were like, I complained about the first time. I was just like, he calls them sniper bots, and they're terrible at sniping people. They don't hit anything. Yeah. And here it's even worse.
It's even worse here.
It's even worse. They don't hit a single thing, and every time the heroes fire at them, they hit every single one. It's like the Stormtrooper meme, except it's actually 100% true. Whereas at least sometimes we see Stormtroopers shooting down random rebels, or like coming pretty close to hitting them. There's a sense of like menace with Stormtroopers that's not there with sniper bots. And when I'm saying Stormtroopers are more effectively dangerous than your villain, you've got a problem.
Yeah, so there was the really bad sniper bots, and then there was the Ghost Monument reference, which
it's like so weird and unearned.
Yeah. So unearned.
It
was unearned in the original episode.
Yeah. It's like in the original episode, at least it was an interesting concept, but here it's just like, why is she calling back to it being a ghost monument?
Right.
It felt like it was just a callback just to have a callback.
Right. I think that's exactly the problem with that line. And then there was the retconning of the guns line, which made it even worse. And it was like Chibnall. Well, it was like he was proud of that episode or something. He was like, "Oh yeah, I made a good episode. Let's call back to it." It'll be like bookends. I don't know. It was weird. There weren't many other episodes that they referenced. I don't think. Yeah, it was weird. It was fixated on that one.
There was the only other episode reference. I can't think of any other references to other episodes. Oh, the telepathic circuits bits was this episode. Yeah, when the Oxes integrate, and she says it used it. And she's saying it worked on Yaz's watch.
Whose watch?
So that was a callback to Demons.
Oh, okay.
Remember they used the watch at the beginning to find where her grandmother is?
That's right.
Yeah.
Speaking of Yaz,
Yeah.
right?
Is there anything to say about Yaz?
What was the
Like,
point
did she
of
do
Yaz?
anything?
Did she do anything? Why?
Yeah.
I think that's
Some
my question.
people who
Why?
who are even more cynical and unfair to Chibnall than I am, but I'm not sure that they're wrong, have pointed out that it's, I've seen it from multiple people, that despite his boasting of a diverse cast this season, Chibnall the only character that Chibnall has properly developed is the old white man.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
Like, even there's more emphasis and more character development given to Graham than even to the Doctor. But, like, Graham is the only character who is 100% working at this point.
Yeah.
And
like,
I think that's a problem if you...
Grace is probably the most developed non-white character this season.
And she died in the first episode. There's things like Ryan doesn't seem to have... Ryan in the first episode is sort of defined about his relationship with his grandmother. But here he's only defined by his relationship with Graham. Like,
and there was at least like the dyspraxia in the first few
yeah,
episodes.
So his dyspraxia is no longer relevant. But also, he doesn't seem to have any strong feelings about Grace having been killed because of Tim Shaw either. It's literally just Graham. They've decided to center the entire thing about Graham's decision about whether to kill Tim Shaw or not. And there was literally no moment where I actually believed he would kill Tim Shaw.
Was there a moment where you thought Graham would die?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I was like...
That was me.
Huh?
That was me. I was kind of waiting, because I think we've talked about it before. It's like 3 people doesn't work, and Graham and Yaz wouldn't make sense. So, and Ryan seems like the main guy, so Graham seems like the natural one to kill off. So I was kind of going into this one being like, all right, just give me a good send-off for Graham, hit me in the feels a little bit, and we can call it a day. And so we got to that moment. And I was like, all right, here we go. This is the moment, and he's gonna die. Ready yourself for it. It's not even that he doesn't die. It's that it's just such a confounding seeing period. Yeah.
So it kind of reminds me of mild spoilers for the television show Merlin, which has been over for years. So I feel like this is okay. But there's a character in there who's played by an actor who I really like. I'm trying to remember what the character's name is now. Starts with a G.
Gwendolyn.
Garoppolo. No, it was not Gwendolyn. It was something that starts with a G. But anyway, Gaius. His name is Gaius. So
kind of close on Gary.
It's kind of close on Gary, actually. But there's a character called Gaius who's like an older mentor character. He's played by an actor who I really liked. He was Dr. Constantine in The Empty Child back in season 1 of Doctor Who. To give us a Doctor Who connection. Series 1 of Doctor Who.
Okay.
I became an American for 25 seconds. But so he's sort of set up as like this older mentor figure for him. And there are like multiple times, like from the beginning of the show, I was just like, okay, so he's definitely doomed then. Like he's the old mentor. And there are like multiple moments where I keep thinking, oh, he's going to die. And then he's like one of the few characters who makes it through to the very last episode. And is alive at the end of the show. And I was just like, it's just odd. It doesn't make any sense from like a dramatic storytelling point of view, in that this is a character with like a limited life expectancy, if that makes sense. It's just like they didn't know what they were doing with the characters.
Well, in Chibnall's case, I guess Graham is, as we said, the best character, and maybe that might have been the plan, and he was like,
maybe they decided
this.
Yeah, but it's just sort of like an odd, there's no stakes to this episode.
No stakes. 0. There's more
Yeah,
steaks at a vegan restaurant.
Exactly. Like, it's... Yeah. I... Like, at least if... There was a brief moment where I thought Graham was gonna die, but when he doesn't die, I wasn't just like, oh, thank goodness Graham's alive. I was just like, oh, okay, cool, so we're not doing anything emotional in this episode then.
Yeah. Can we have a shout out for how, like, the only recurring monster of the season and, like, the biggest threat is defeated when he gets shot in the toe? Like,
yeah.
The guy lived for 3,000 years. He was worshipped as a god. He has 1,000 teeth on his face. Shot him in the toe.
In defense of that moment, the bit that I found, the only line in this episode that I found memorable or funny was Graham, you shot him just in the foot, just to shut him up. Don't tell the doc.
Yeah,
and
that line was funny.
That was more on Bradley Walsh than on the actual dialogue.
Right. He's very charismatic, that guy. I liked the I bet the 7 really dragged. That was a good one.
Oh, that was a good one as well. Yeah, it's funny because there are a few really good lines in it, but for the most part, it's just very bland. This is very much Ghost Monument Chibnall.
This is like a Ghost Monument. I felt like there were things happening. There was a race. I wind up being a race. So there was shooting sniper butts. Before this,
for me, it's exactly the same thing as Ghost Monument, where it sets up things happening, and then they don't really happen, or it ruins all of the dramatic potential of them. Like, there's a race, but nobody actually ends up racing. They just sort of walk together in the same general direction. It's like sort of a high-stakes sort of thing where they're supposed to be constantly sabotaging and working against each other, but they never actually do. And it's the same thing here, where it's just like there's a mind-warping planet, but nobody's mind is ever warped. There's a character whose memory has been wiped, and so we're waiting for him to like rediscover the stuff that he's forgotten. But everything he's forgotten just turns out to be exposition that would have given the plot away if it had been said slightly earlier, as opposed to if Moffat had done this. You know that every time, you know that there would have been some twist about that character. Like that he was actually on Tim Shaw's side, or that there was something he'd done that he was horribly ashamed of, or that he'd actually died and was like a reconstituted zombie put in as a trap for the Doctor or whatever. Whereas here it was just like, oh, if he doesn't have amnesia, he could just tell them what was going on and the plot would be over sooner.
I guess I'll put it this way. The Ghost Monument fooled me for longer, which kind of makes it better in my view. This one, I saw through it in the first 5 or 6 minutes. I was on board when there was the 9 distress calls. I was like, okay, that's kind of big. Seems like there's some big stakes going on. And then we get to Amnesia Dude, and it became very clear right away that nothing is going to get followed through on.
Yeah. I think the thing for me is that I think that the reason that the reviews overall have gone down for this season, apart from that there was like a brief uptick when the episode quality actually improved, but it's like from The Woman Who Fell to Earth, which got all around like super positive reviews, to The Seranga Carnablodub, which got completely panned and has like one of the worst IMDb ratings for a Doctor Who episode. But I think that there was no significant difference in the quality of the writing of the series as it went along. It was just that people slowly began to realize that it wasn't like when I watched The Woman Who Fell to Earth, I was just like, this is a great foundation. And then as it went along, I started to realize this isn't the foundation. The building is just a hole in the ground with some cement thrown down.
Can I just pat myself on the back here for a second?
Mm-hmm.
I got up on my soapbox after Demons, and I said, if that's as best as we're going to get, we're in trouble. And I was right, because that might have been the best that we got this season.
What the?
It was, well, I I've been looking through people's like lists of the episodes in order, and Demons is usually first for some reason.
Demons is usually first that I've been seeing. I also really liked Demons, but I know you didn't. But the ones that I would say are really, so I would say overall the non-Chibnall written ones are higher quality.
I would agree, but we can save it for the post-mortem hint.
Yeah, well, we can save that for the post-mortem. It really is a post-mortem at this point. I think it's like this is dead on arrival. We gotta work out what happened.
I said it almost sardonically when I mentioned it to you, like the idea of doing that, and then I think someone said, "Well, if the finale is really bad, then it will be a post-mortem." And like I was not super excited for this finale, but the previous these are terrible IMDb ratings. The finale we got a 6 actually. The worst rated one was the Taranga Conundrum, which has a 5. But anyway, I was not the most hyped for it, but after the few good ones in a row, I was like, just give me, I don't know, like a mediocre, not an aggressively mediocre one, a passively mediocre episode, and I can like stomach this season. And it gave me one of my least favorite episodes. And I guess I'll make my case now for why I think I'm going to give this a 1. I keep seeing people say things like, well, it's not outright terrible. You know, it's not like kill the moon. The moon is not an egg. It's not Forest in the Night, whatever. You know, there's nothing obtusely awful in it. It's just that it was kind of boring. And I've mentioned this to you plenty of times. I think the worst any sort of medium can be is boring. And this one was so boring, so thoroughly, aggressively boring. As you said, like, almost willingly taking every opportunity for drama and avoiding it like it was scared. I can't think of, beyond 2 one-liners, I can't think of a positive quality to this episode.
It's
so there's I don't see any reason to give it anything other than a 1. Like there's no
I mean, honestly, I don't know what score I give it. I'm just like, I don't. It was an episode of Doctor Who. Like,
well, when I say that, I mean I'm talking about like the
you're talking
Earth.
More,
yeah, where it's like there's good, there's bad, you know, there's ugly. Like it was just average, you know. Yeah. This one, was that an episode of Doctor Who? Like, was there a plot? Was there a theme?
It feels like Doctor Who as written by someone who doesn't actually, like, get Doctor Who or like Doctor Who, and just sort of has this vague concept of, like, Doctor Who is about people travel in a time machine, and the Doctor is quirky and says funny things. And there are space aliens with unpronounceable names. Like...
It was like Uncanny Valley Doctor Who.
Yeah. It's Doctor Who as written for the people who like Law and Order, which is quite fitting given that that's what Chibnall's past is. And honestly, I'm shocked that I ever expected anything different.
It's like, I think there's a good take I saw on Reddit, which is not a sentence I say a lot. For someone who spends so much of his time on Reddit, anyway, it was something along the lines of Chibnall is trying to do like out there sci-fi at the same time make the episodes more accessible, and it does not work.
Is he trying to do out there sci-fi? He absolutely isn't.
Well, this episode, you know, it had these sci-fi Doctor Who moments that he stole from the pirate planet.
But the thing is that
being condensed down to size, 3,000 year gap where you have
the thing is that
because
none of it is real. You know what I mean? So it feels like it's science fiction done by someone who doesn't understand what science fiction is, and who doesn't have any conception of science fiction beyond the genre trappings. So
yeah, I guess that's the other way to take it. That's the more.
That's what I'm saying. That it's like alien names, sort of like alien conquerors destroying planets, like alien shit. There's a bunch of crashed spaceships. It's a planet. These aliens have like super magic powers. It's like a bunch of things thrown out there that are genre trappings of science fiction. But there's no actual speculative science fiction element to this writing.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just it's sci-fi without the connection to reality. I guess even that is being too generous. Really, it's sci-fi without the fun or interesting bits of sci-fi. Or
the interesting thing is, I often felt that with the Russell T Davies era. Because he had a background in soap operas and comedy. More soap operas, I think. And also some drama. And, he was quite a varied background. But he wasn't so much like a science fiction writer guy. Although, and I often felt like the weakest elements of his script were the science fiction elements. But he had a strong sense of dramatic storytelling and character-driven stories. And, like, humor. And sort of using the science fiction to sort of parallel real-world events or, like, be satirical about something. Whereas Chibnall just feels like he's draping science fiction tropes over nothing. Like, it's just a procedural. Like, there seems to be no purpose behind Chibnall's writing, no motivation other than that the BBC told him he had to write 55 minutes of television, and so he wrote 55 minutes of television.
Wrote the strong word there. I apologize to Russell T Davies for my dunking on his finales, because at least when his finales were not great TV, they were interesting TV, and they had drama and stakes and music that went louder than 10 decibels and acting and dialogue. Even The Stolen Earth, which I complain about a lot, in Journey's End, it has this sort of sense of finality. It feels like a season finale. This one barely felt like a mid-season episode.
Yeah. And this would have been like a very mediocre, utterly forgettable, probably still ranking pretty low in my list, like, episode if it was like a middle season episode. But as a finale, I guess it's got the scale, but it's got that thing that I have a thing where I really don't like seeing the whole Earth threatened generally, because I never believe that they're actually going to blow up the Earth. But it's done so many times in everything. It's like, for a long time, every Star Trek movie was doing it, and I gave Star Trek Beyond like a lot of credit beyond like its qualities as a film, just for the fact that it didn't have a thing about, are they going to blow up the Earth? Because I was just like, it's Star Trek, they're not going to blow up Earth.
I'm adding another $1 into the Josh mentioned Star Trek jar.
Yeah, it's going to be a jar of a lot of money. We could use it to fund our own version of Doctor Who. But yeah, it's just like, it's a common science fiction trope where it's just like, we're going to put the whole Earth in danger, but it doesn't work, especially here, because we don't see anybody on Earth. It's an Earth 3,000 years into the future. We don't see anybody on it. We have no context of the danger to the people on it. It's no more of a sort of threat than the planets that have already been crushed and condensed down. Like,
Yeah.
it's just sort of this abstract danger to raise the stakes. And it could...
It felt really empty.
It felt really empty.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Pirate Planet does the same thing, but I felt like in the Pirate Planet it actually works, because we also see bits of it in, like, present-day Earth. We've got sort of... And the stakes are more about what's happening on the Pirate Planet itself. And that's just sort of one aspect of it, whereas here it felt like the entire center of the finale was about the danger to Earth, and it was sort of like a colossal sort of like revenge on the Doctor. But I didn't feel the stakes there. You don't...
No.
Yeah.
Well, I think even like a single shot of Earth would have helped with that.
Yeah.
Like, you could have just had a still of, like, you know, a NASA photo of the Earth, of just...
Or even just like...
Nothing else,
Yeah.
and that would have helped.
Yeah, just like showing something on Earth. Or alternatively, making it be... Having a plot... You could have expanded the plot, had a separate planet, had that planet actually get developed, and then sort of had the planet get threatened. And that would have probably required making it almost a two-parter, but it would have worked better than just being like... suddenly the Earth is in danger and we're supposed to care about this.
Or I'm just spitballing here. I don't know why I'm getting this idea. But maybe there could have been like a battle. You know, like Tim Shaw is
there could have been
really
a battle.
Powerful. There could have been a battle. What was the name of the planet again? Like Ranskoor, Kolos. Like there could have been a battle on the planet of Ranskoor. That could have been cool. Just throwing ideas out here randomly. Like, she could have gotten maybe some allies from earlier in the season to come back and help her break through, like, a fortress or something that he built. I guess he has a floating citadel shrine thing. I mean, that could have been somewhat palatable. And she has to, like, justify, you know, the use of deadly force in this situation, even though it's kind of obvious why you could justify it. I could keep going. There's too many things to criticize about this episode. I don't know if I've hit half of my complaints. I didn't take notes because about like 5 minutes through, I was just like, you know what? If I start taking notes, I'm gonna write an essay.
Yeah, I'm just like, I feel like I don't... It's just sort of a profoundly uninspiring episode. Like, it leaves
me...
me...
like he quit. It kind of feels like Chibnall phoned it in. Like, he's already sick of it. Like, this feels like one of the... This feels like a mid-Moffat era, Moffat's burned out episode. I don't think
even that at his most burned out that Moffat felt anywhere near this.
No, he never wrote an episode nearly as bad. But like the but I feel like there's kind of elements of just general burnoutedness in this episode. It feels like it's apathetic.
It does.
You know? Yeah.
To me, it feels... The thing for me is that Russell T Davies, like, desperately wanted to write Doctor Who to the point that he resurrected the show from cancellation. Mm-hmm. He wrote a Doctor Who novel back in the 90s. Like, that was what he wanted to do with his career. He wanted to write Doctor Who. Stephen Moffat, like, massive Doctor Who fan. Like, you could tell that he passed up, you know, he was writing Adventures of Tintin in America for Steven Spielberg, and he passed that up to write Doctor Who. And you could tell that he loved Doctor Who, and that was what he wanted to do. Even when his episodes sort of went a bit off the rails, both of them, even when their episodes went off the rails, you could tell that there was genuine passion and interest in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Chris Chibnall feels like he definitely liked Doctor Who. Like, he has kind of an interest in Doctor Who, but he doesn't feel like he has strong ideas for what to do with it beyond, I should make the Doctor female. Which is, honestly, it was about time. Like, if the 13th Doctor hadn't been a woman, I feel like that would have been... It would have been a mistake. But, like, it feels like beyond that super obvious step, he doesn't have any strong ideas for where to take the show. He's just turning in episodes of Doctor Who because the BBC gave him this job. Like, it's a job that he has to do rather than a passion project.
Yeah, I agree completely. There doesn't seem like there's a lot of joy in it. It felt like McTighe and Wilkinson really enjoyed writing their episodes. They had fun with it.
Yeah.
Chibnall's just like, I don't know. It seemed like he had as much fun writing it as he did Broadchurch.
Yeah.
Which is about a little kid that gets murdered. It's not very fun to write.
I felt like he had less fun. Because Broadchurch Series 1 at least Broadchurch Series 1 does have some element of passion behind it. And I felt like Series 2 feels more like this. Where it's just like, it feels like ITV commissioned him for 2 more series. And he had no idea what he was going to do with those because he literally told the story he wanted to tell. And then was stuck having to write 12 more hours of television. And here it feels like he somehow got talked into writing Doctor Who to take over for Moffat because he was the only sort of viable candidate in the BBC's eyes.
Well, I get one thing that we haven't brought up yet that kind of lends credence to all this is that they announced that there is not going to be Doctor Who in 2019 other than January 1st. After there already took a year between seasons.
Yes, to be fair, it wasn't a year between the last series and this series. It was the year before that, but...
a year before that.
Yeah. It's still too soon for another gap, and it's Jodie Whittaker I don't think is established enough yet for a gap.
Yeah, it's not like any of them other than Bradley Walsh are going to be busy. I mean, Chibnall just took the job and just cut it to 10 episodes a year. Like, I mean... Or at least for this year, 10 episodes. Like,
I don't know
you literally have one
situation.
job. You have one job, and that is to get a season of Doctor Who out a year if you're the showrunner of Doctor Who.
And they reduced it down in number of episodes as well.
Yeah. Like, it would be like if you went to Starbucks and you got your, double soy chai, and your barista was like, all right, I'll get right on that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, I will do my job just in exorbitantly long amount of time. Because I'm
honestly, the thing is that I don't know whether it's Chibnall or the BBC that's to be blamed, because it's entirely possible it's the BBC is only scheduling Doctor Who every other year because they can't afford it or whatever. But it just seems like a bad idea all around to delay for a year.
It seems like it has Chibnall's lazy and apathetic and doesn't really want to do this written all over it.
It kind of does. I mean, it feels as well like if regardless of whose idea it was, it feels like Chibnall didn't push very hard back if it was the BBC's idea.
Right, Moffat drunkenly saved the Christmas special.
So Stephen Moffat was so passionate even after he was no longer doing the show, when they would look like they were going to lose the Christmas slot, that he wrote an episode and delayed the regeneration and sort of created an entire concept drunkenly just to fill that spot to make sure Doctor Who didn't lose it. And then Chibnall's just like, I'd rather I guess we can just move to New Year's Day. And I guess I'm just not going to do Doctor Who next year.
He didn't even take the Davies route of, let's do both Christmas and New Year's Eve. Or New Year's Day. So that we don't ruin the Christmas tradition.
And the thing is as well, that when Moffat had the skip year, they aired Class that year, which I know a lot of people didn't like or didn't watch, but it was at least something.
I think a lot of people didn't watch it.
Yeah, it was at least something. They didn't show it that year in America, which was weird, but they showed it that year on the BBC in England, and it feels like that. It feels like at least you should have something like that, like a spin-off show, some specials. Like a whole year with nothing I don't think that's ever happened before. Because the Moffat era's skip years, you had Series 7 split across 2 years, but there were still episodes both years. You had the Capaldi gap where it had Class at least, and it had the Christmas special that year as well, and you had the Russell T Davies skip year, where there was the specials with David Tennant, but there's been no outright just like nothing for an entire year, and that just seems crazy. That just seems like a bad idea.
It's like you want to inject some new life into the show. Fine, Moffat maybe getting a little bit tired of his shtick, so you switch up the showrunner, you switch up the cast, you switch up the doctor, you switch up the doctor's gender, like all fine. You switch up the damn composer, and so you're injecting his new life into the show, and then you get a really low key, boring season, and then nothing the next year. Like that's the opposite.
The thing as well is that. So, leaving aside our critical opinions of the series, which, sort of from a business opinion, don't really matter, the series has been getting good ratings. The Woman Who Fell to Earth had, like, the highest ratings in years. So it's like, so it has got momentum. So skipping a whole year just seems like a bad call. Like, how hard is it to make, maybe not even a full 10 episodes then, just make like 6 episodes. Just make a couple of specials. Just do something.
Right, just do a Christmas, a New Year's, and a Valentine's Day special. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Russell T Davies move I think was a good one, where it was Christmas special, then an Easter special, then a fall special, then Christmas, and then New Year's. I felt like that was a good breakdown of how you should do specials, but just something. Just, like, I felt like they should just have an episode at least next year.
I'm blanking on the name of, like, the charity episodes that they do. Yeah.
It's just a baffling decision. It's just like, if I had the opportunity to write Doctor Who, I would not be blowing it away by skipping a year.
I would just be like, alright, you want me to skip a year? How about we skip a year, but next season is 24 2-hour episodes to make up the difference.
Yeah.
Like, it's like he got handed the keys to a Lamborghini, and he's using it to drive it back and forth from the supermarket.
Yeah, that's an excellent description of it. Yeah, he's using the Lamborghini to, like, do his groceries.
Or maybe he was handed the keys to a machine that can go anywhere in time and space,
and he keeps going to
he goes to watch historical events happen without changing.
And he keeps going to dead junk planets. There are 3 dead junk planets this series.
I was thinking that this planet, it was going to be revealed, was Desolation.
No, it's an unrelated dead junk planet. The universe is full of them.
They also have sniper bots, apparently, that can't shoot.
Mm-hmm. Well, to be fair, those were a Stenza invention, but...
They were a Stenza thing?
Yeah, because remember the Desolation was caused by the Stenza, so I guess the sniper bots were supposed to be Stenza weapons. But still, it's just... Yeah.
We could have replaced this podcast with just me sighing, and I think you would get the message across.
Yes.
I don't know. Someone should count the size that I make today.
I wish I would have been counting the sighs so we could have a tally at the end, like the number of times you sigh, the number of times I sigh, and like people could play. There you go, a fun drinking game to play while listening to this podcast. Every time we sigh, you take a shot, and we won't pay for your hospital bills. Yeah, but it's just sort of... Do you remember the advertising for this? You probably stayed away from most of the advertising, but like the pictures...
advertising that I stayed away from?
But like all of the pictures were just sort of like everything was really brightly colored, like the new logo, like they would sort of everything seemed like it was going to be super exciting adventure tone, and that was from Woman Who Fell Too Off. I was just like, okay, that was really grounded and like low key, but that's because they're gonna go into sort of full like Doctor Who Weird Planet next episode. And then it's just there's been nothing like it.
They never really took off except for It Takes You Away.
It's just It Takes You Away is like the one truly great episode this season, and even it has some flaws. Right. But yeah, it's basically the episodes of the series that I actually sort of... I guess that's more of a post-mortem thing to start talking about which episodes I like, so I'm going to leave off that one. I keep almost edging into our post-mortem territory here.
I mean, it's... the post-mortem, I think that will be our special, I think it's going to be 90 minutes or so at least, because... There's a lot to talk about this season. It's just not a lot of good things to talk about. Yeah.
And the real question is, what on earth are we going to talk about next year when there's no Doctor Who? I have a couple of suggestions, which are we go through the entire classic Doctor Who thing in order. We go through the entire Big Finish catalog in order. I talk about all 70-something Doctor Who books I bought from my work the other day because I have no self-control. Or I read my Doctor Who scripts that I've written out loud into a microphone while doing different voices for all of the characters. Do any of those appeal to you? Some of them may not have been serious.
I was thinking. How old were we when we did those? We were like 19. Like I wrote my season, quote unquote, of Doctor Who, and like for most of it. I had this problem where my doctor, who was female, sounded too much like Matt Smith, and you were telling me that when you were reading them.
Yeah.
And then I wrote the first episode of the, again, air quotes, second season that I was doing, and I think both of us felt like I'd gotten the hang of how my doctor felt.
Yeah.
And I was 19, and I was able to work that out over the course of like a year of planning.
Yeah.
And Chibnall was not, and he's an old.
Yeah. And even when your doctor just felt like Matt Smith, they at least felt like the Doctor. It just felt like you were writing Matt Smith, but now a woman. Whereas I feel like the Jodie Whittaker lines would still feel flat even coming from like Matt Smith. Yeah. It's not just a matter of...
Just hire me, BBC. I may be American, but, you know, I'm learning French, and that's close to England.
I am not American, so they can just hire me.
I know, you spell color with a U.
I do. We had a fight about it once.
A few times. All right. Well, I think it's totally fair if we do like a teaser for the postmortem. Not to put you on the spot, but do you think you could rank like the episodes in a loose order?
I have been put on the spot. I could do it. I can do it.
You could do it.
Okay. Postmortem preview coming up.
Postmortem preview.
Okay. So, best episode is It Takes You Away. Mm-hmm. Second best is The Witchfinders. Third best is Demons of Punjab. Sorry, Jaden. Then... then I guess I guess Kablam, because its ending is morally problematic, and doesn't make any sense in the rest of the episode, but at least it was fun.
Capitalism.
Yeah. Then Rosa.
Okay.
Rosa was really close to being much better than that. I think just overall it's... A part of me feels like it's the Chibnall bits of the plot of the script that fall really flat. Then probably Woman Who Fell to Earth, Arachnids, and then Ghost Monument, last of all. Oh, okay. And I forgot this episode.
Hmm?
I forgot this episode.
You forgot this episode.
Battle of... I think that really says it all right there. Battle of... Yeah. Comes right in between... comes right in between the Surind Kunibrub and the Ghost Monument.
Alright. I think that's overall fair. Mine would be It Takes Away and The Witchfinders 1 and 2, like you. Then Kerblam. And then, like you, I'm just like, ugh. I guess after Kerblam, I'd say Woman Who Fell to Earth, then Rosa, then Ghost Monument. Oh, I don't even know between Arachnids and Saranga. Ghost Monument, Demons, Saranga, Arachnids, and this episode. I think that's all of them. The battle.
That's
actually I've been trying to do a little bit of Dutch. I think that's Dutch. Is it?
I feel like that's ranking Ghost Monument way too high, but we're not gonna agree on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I did have that pause, so I have an easy explanation for it over Arachnids, which is I gave Arachnids an incomplete.
Yeah,
because it didn't have an ending. I'm not sure on Ghost Monument versus Saranga. I think you could flip flop them maybe. Before we do the post, I don't even want to rewatch these episodes, which is like the most standard thing I've said.
Yeah.
I kind of want to rewatch Demons and Ghost Monument. Maybe the first one. Other than that, I think. And It Takes You Away. Like, that's a third? That's a third of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, for me, Ghost Monument, I think, is a case of if you rewatched it, I feel like your ranking would be similar to mine, in that I think a lot of the positivity for Ghost Monument that I was seeing it felt like people were making the exact same complaints once they got a couple of more episodes in. And it was just the case that it was the second episode and everyone was still sort of on that positive, like, buzz.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, yeah. I think this is a good sign for the season.
Yeah, you were like, it's a good sign for the season, but the episode wasn't that great. And then we're just like, nope, that's just what the season's going to be like. The companions...
Podcast is a mistake.
Yeah, the companions got to be interesting in one episode.
Oh, yeah. Now the whole internet's going to know that I was wrong.
Yeah. Well... I once on the internet said that I believed that the Assassin's Creed movie was going to be good, so...
Yeah, you were literally the only person who thought that.
It's because I don't care about Assassin's Creed at all, but I love Justin Kurzel's films. So... like, everyone else is just like, they're changing stuff from Assassin's Creed, and I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care at all. I'm just like, I like this guy's movies. And then... it turned out that it was just not a good movie. But, yeah. Whereas this one, I called a couple of years back. I was like, Chris Chibnall is not qualified to something of a toilet, let alone showrun Doctor Who, and I was absolutely right.
I think it was like plunge a toilet.
Yeah, it was like, fix a toilet or something like that. Maybe it was flush a toilet.
I don't like that we were cynical going into this season and that we were right.
Well, the funny thing is that my cynicism kind of wore off because I liked, loved the choice of Jodie as the Doctor. I was just like, she's a good choice. She is she has sort of a great, sort of attitude, great look. Like, she works really well as the Doctor from a casting point of view. He didn't just cast like Chris Marshall, which would have been, for me, if he'd cast Chris Marshall, I would have known from the start this was the series we were going to get. But I think he was able to disguise it by by casting a woman Doctor, which is, at the same time, it's an interesting idea, but at the same time, it is very much the obvious interesting idea. In that casting a woman Doctor has been it's been discussed since like the 1980s as like, when is Doctor Who gonna do this? Is Doctor Who gonna do this? So it's an interesting move. It's a move that was definitely at least about time, probably a bit overdue. But yeah, it was. That was probably like his one really great decision that he made. So ideally, he leaves now and hands it over to someone else who keeps Jodie, who keeps Graham, and who keeps the opening credits, and then otherwise we get a new start.
I'm gonna do one last analogy.
Oh, okay.
Fuck it. These suggestions are kind of like this was a decent cheeseburger if you take away the burger, the bun, the lettuce, and the tomato, but the pickles, they were pretty good.
Yeah, I just like to make it really clear that I am 100% on board with a female Doctor, because I don't want people on the internet who are opposed to that on principle taking my points and running with them as sort of evidence for their.
I just clear that I'm hungry.
Yeah, like,
yeah,
because that's kind of the annoying thing about this, that I'm just like, I feel like this has been the weakest. I feel like this has been the weakest season of Doctor Who since the new series, at least since the 80s, really.
Yeah, at least of New Who.
At least of New Who.
My previous least favorite was 7. And at least those, like, they have some similarities. Like, they're all one-parters. They're all, like, kind of self-contained. But 7 had some total boring episodes and some spectacular failures, at least. And this is just, like, a flat line with a couple of bumps here and there.
Yeah. It's like, I really wanted to love this series, but I didn't. It's not that it's particularly terrible for me. The analogy I was making earlier was that it's like Doctor Who, for me, used to be like, it was on the same sort of, it was competing with like higher end prestige television, whereas now it's more on the same level as like the CW DC superhero shows. Mm-hmm. Except, honestly, the CW DC superhero shows overall have been stronger this fall than Doctor Who has, which is slightly damning. But for me, that's just kind of like the difference of scale, is that Moffat was sort of like competing with, Netflix and like American Gods, things like that for me. Whereas this is competing with like standard network television 22 episode series.
So do you think you can land on because are we going to scrap the number score after this episode or the New Year's special? Do you want to like debut it, because we're not going to get a chance to until 2020 apparently to debut our planned new rating system.
Yeah, we've got to wait a whole year that gives us a year to refine the rating system to make it ludicrously complicated so that none of our listeners can follow along or understand whether we're saying a story is good or not.
Completely arbitrary. Prime numbers are better than non-prime numbers.
So
So do you think you have a number to land on for the penultimate number rating?
So if I could, I would probably move down most of my scores for previous episodes by at least 1 or 2 points. So if I had done that,
you can, because it's a completely arbitrary system.
I can, because it's a completely arbitrary system. So let's say we did that, and let's say that then that Ghost Monument is now a 5, and or a 5.5, whichever one I'd said it was. This is like this is about the same as that. This is about a 5, which is to say it's a failure. Like maybe a 6 if I'm being generous. Which is like one of the lowest scores I've given to a Doctor Who episode that isn't a case of I outright hate it. It's just aggressively meh.
In a bizarre turn of events, this is going to be the by far the biggest number disagreement. I think more so than Demons, because you do not talk me out of it. I'm going 1.
Honestly, it's fair.
Okay. There we go. Now we're done.